Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to have so many of you join us from across the country for this important conversation about how family engagement can support college and career success. On behalf of the U.S. Department of Education, along with our amazing partners, the Overdeck Family Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation of New York, we thank you for joining us for the sixth and final installment of the Family Engagement Learning Series, our six-part conversation around how family engagement strategies can support student success. Together, we are raising the bar for parent partnership. The U.S. Department of Ed is committed to bringing together school, local, state, national, and parent leaders to make sure that every educator and every parent has the tools and resources they need to form strong partnerships between home and school. My name is Sheetal Shah. I'm Senior Advisor for Strategic Partnerships here at the U.S. Department of Education. I wanted to begin this session with a quick overview of what you can expect in our time together today. After our welcomes, we'll have an overview of evidence from the field about how family engagement strategies can support college and career pathway success. That overview will be followed by three conversations highlighting bright spots from across the country, where you'll learn more about how local and school leaders are implementing these practices. All of our panelists will then join in a moderated panel discussion, followed by audience Q&A. So start thinking about your questions, jot them down so you don't forget them once we start. But before jumping into this rich agenda, let me introduce my U.S. Department of Education colleague who will give us opening remarks. Amy Lloyd is the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education. She has an extensive background in education and the nonprofit sector, and has designed and led programs across the nation that improve education and workforce outcomes for people and strengthen communities. After Amy, our moderator and good friend of mine, Farhad Asghar, will lead us through the remainder of today's webinar. Farhad is a program officer at Carnegie for Pathways to Postsecondary Success, and an excellent person to definitely lead us through today's discussion as both a father and an expert in the field of career pathways. Thank you and enjoy.
Cache, buenos dias, and hi everyone. My name is Amy Lloyd, and I'm honored to serve as the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education here at the U.S. Department of Education. My wonderful team and I are responsible for career and technical education, including career and college pathways. In all of our work, we're centered on equity, excellence, and the intersection of education, workforce development, and economic development. This means that in all that we do, we think about our students and their families and how our education system can support our young people to engage in dynamic, joyful, and rewarding pathways that empower students and families to have real choices and make informed decisions about their futures. We know that parents and aunties, uncles, grandparents, and other caregivers are our students' first, best, and most influential teachers. All of us at the department and across the administration are fully committed to the role of family engagement in all aspects of education. I started my career in education as a family advocate, working in schools, connecting with families every day, serving as a bridge of communication and collaboration to ensure that family voices were heard and heeded in all that we did for students. My role was to connect families with supports and resources, create opportunities for students to shine and families to thrive, both in school and life beyond. And family advocacy is still my role, still all of our role here at the department. Our families are essential to student success. And every single young person, regardless of what their plans are for life after high school, every single young person is headed to a job, ideally to a good job and a career. We know families care deeply about preparing their young people for bright futures, and we want to partner with families in this work. That's why I'm so excited about today's webinar on family engagement and career pathways. Secretary Cardona has charged us to bring to life our shared vision to raise the bar, unlock career success, and transform our nation's high schools to blur the lines between school, post-secondary education, and the world of work. In fact, this is one of three big goals that the Secretary has laid out for our work. The first goal is focused on achieving academic excellence. The second is focused on boldly improving learning conditions. And the third is this work. It's creating pathways for global engagement. We want our young people to be prepared for the future of work so that they can compete globally and also find great jobs in their hometowns. And our students' families are essential to helping our young people understand and navigate the wide horizon of career pathways possibilities before them. With the administration's Investing in America priorities and high-growth, high-wage fields, our economy is rapidly shifting, and new jobs are being created in leading-edge and technology-driven areas that didn't even exist when all of us who are now parents were considering our own futures. That's why we want schools to partner with business and industry and institutions of higher education to build pathways to great careers and to collaborate closely with the people we serve, our students and families. We believe students and families together should exercise meaningful self-determination about their futures, based on what students are passionate about, what they see their purpose is, based on the problems they want to solve and how they want to connect to their communities and be part of something larger than themselves, and based on their ability to earn a living wage that allows them to thrive into the future. Secretary Cardona and I believe that we can achieve this goal by integrating and aligning what has been for too many and for too long a disjointed and often disconnected journey into adulthood. Navigating pathways from high school to post-secondary education to a career should be like the best highways we have, with clearly marked signs communicating where you're going and how long it's going to take for you to get there, with options to go in a new direction if you so choose, with lots of opportunities for off-ramps and on-ramps to make stops along the way, and with no dead ends. Pathways always provide more opportunity to continue to travel, learn, and grow. And because the majority of jobs today and into the future require some form of post-secondary education, we want to set students up for success starting early and help them to understand that learning and upskilling will be a lifelong journey. Students might earn their first credential, then go to work. Then their employer might pay for them to go back to school to earn their next credential. And post-secondary education takes many forms, all of which are valuable in today's economy. It could be a technical school, a community college, a four-year degree, registered apprenticeship, or workforce development training. Our vision is that every student, not just those fortunate to be in a high-quality career in technical education, but every student will be on a career pathway in high school and beyond that includes leaving high school with 4 keys to unlock their career success. 1, college credit to give them momentum towards a first post-secondary credential. 2, real-world work-based learning experiences. 3, an industry-sought workforce credential that they can use in the labor market. And 4, a plan informed by families to achieve their career and college ambitions, whatever they may be. We'll be releasing a new $25 million grant program focused on career-connected high schools this summer to further advance this vision, so stay tuned for that funding opportunity. And for more information on our Career Pathways work, please check out our Unlocking Career Success website, which has in it core questions that students and families can use to guide their engagement with schools regarding career pathways. We at the department are committed to making sure families are engaged, informed, and invested in our work. We are here to listen to you, to learn from you, to provide your schools and communities with funding opportunities and tools and resources, to lift up your successes, and to be a service agency to you. We work for you. Please let us know how we can support you as you build our nation's future through creating inclusive, vibrant, purposeful, and powerful career pathways for our young people. Thank you for joining us today and for your commitment to family engagement and career pathways. El agua, gracias, and thank you.
It's over to me. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, greetings, and welcome once again to this important conversation on how family engagement supports college and career pathway success. We cannot agree with Assistant Secretary Lloyd anymore about the importance of this work. We know that given all the changes to our modern economy, how important the role of school and family connections are for post-secondary success. To put it quite bluntly, lifelong success in the United States is critically dependent on educational attainment. But we need to diversify and strengthen options available to all students after high school via pathways that honor the needs of students and local communities. This means building affordable, innovative, flexible college and career pathways that provide greater opportunities for students to engage in both career-aligned and academic content, spanning K-12, higher ed, and the world of work. It requires recognizing and actively removing intentional and unintentional barriers that prevent so many students from successfully pursuing opportunities after high school, while enhancing and expanding prospects for post-secondary education. And none of this will matter if the families in our care do not know about or cannot access the power and promise of post-secondary education. So to realize this vision, we must work together with the families in our care and place our students in the center of opportunities needed to live a choice-filled life. So let's just do that. So today I have the great privilege of helping moderate this conversation. And I want to invite in David Park. David Park is the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Communication at Learning Heroes, where he taps into his extensive experience working across communications, strategic planning, community engagement, and national awareness campaign. And he's going to kick us off today. So David, I want to just set you off with this question. Learning Heroes has conducted a lot of research on family engagement, and some of the findings and insights have important implications for our discussion around college and career pathways. Can you share a little bit more about this work, David?
Sure. Thank you, Farhad, and thanks to the U.S. Department of Education, to Overdeck Family Foundation, and Carnegie Corporation of New York for hosting this terrific series of webinars. Some of you know Learning Heroes already, and for those of you who don't, we're a national nonprofit that supports families, educators, and education leaders through research, communications, and trainings. And we make all of our research available to the public. We want you to be able to use this research, so you can find it all at bealearninghero.org, which I believe is listed in the chat. Today, I'm going to focus on two reports that we hope will be helpful in providing some context around this conversation. One is Parents 2019, where we asked a battery of questions about how families think about college and career, and our most recent Parents 2023 research, which we did in connection with our Go Beyond Grades campaign. So this slide obviously has a lot of information, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but I did want to quickly walk through some points about the methodology. So Parents 2019 was a nationally representative survey conducted by Edge Research. It's nearly 3,000 parents were surveyed, parents and guardians with kids in K-12, and offered in both English and Spanish in April and May of 2019. Data were weighted to be representative of public school parents in the US, and the survey also included a nationwide sample of more than 500 public school teachers in grades 9 through 12. And so I will note that this research was fielded before the pandemic, and we all know that the pandemic has certainly impacted how families perceive education. But the data that we have collected since then indicate that parents' post-secondary aspirations and perceptions haven't changed dramatically. But I am going to supplement that data with our Parents 2023 research, which was fielded in March of this year among parents with kids in public schools. And this was an omnibus survey among a demographically representative sample of 1,000 parents and guardians. The survey was fielded in several cities, including Houston, Chicago, New York, Boston, Washington, and Sacramento, as well as nationally. You can find out more about the methodology on our research page of our website. And also, we're joined today by Adam Burns of Edge Research, who can also help address any questions about the methodology of research. So if we go to the next slide, just to get us kicked off, I wanted to talk about parent perceptions of college and career. And we hear a lot of how perceptions of college and career are changing. However, many parents still prioritize college and think it's the conduit to a good job. So you'll see here that nearly 3 in 4 parents, or 73%, including 77% of middle school parents and 78% of high school parents, think it's essential or very important for their child to go to college. Now, college aspirations are highest among Hispanic parents and African-American parents, really high among Hispanic parents and Spanish-speaking parents at 87%. With African-American parents, it's 81%. So it's really our families of color that have even higher educational aspirations for their kids, and yet also more challenges in terms of attaining an equitable education. And if you look at the right side of the graph, parents not only say it's likely their kids will go to college, but they also say it's very likely their child will graduate from college. So that's 78% of parents overall, 77% of middle school parents, and 79% of high school parents. And as we know, unfortunately, a lot of young people begin post-secondary education and later drop out without a degree, and unfortunately with a significant amount of debt. So going to the next slide, the last slide covered perceptions and aspirations, and this slide shows how parents of middle and high school students prioritize various things around their child's education. So parents in this survey were given a list from which to select the most important, and these were ranked by mean score. So the lower the mean score, the higher they are on the parent list of what's important, as well as the percentage of the items that are selected as the number one in terms of what's important right now. And you'll see that for middle school parents, achieving at or above grade level is number 2 on the list, right behind my child enjoying school. While being prepared for college and being prepared for a good job opportunities are a bit further down the list. But as kids get older, and perhaps this isn't surprising, being prepared for college tops the list of what's important for parents, and achieving at or above grade level and being prepared for good job opportunities is a bit further down. So while they certainly see career as important, they do view post-secondary education, a 2 or 4 year college degree specifically, as a critical step. And moving on to the next slide, we've spoken about aspirations among parents earlier. Interestingly, parents' high aspirations are matched with a significant amount of confidence. Our data, and this is data from March of 2023, show that 74% of parents are extremely or very confident that their kids will be prepared for entrance into and success in college after earning a high school diploma. And you'll see on the right-hand side that parents are also very confident about their understanding of their child's achievement, with 80% extremely or very confident they have a clear understanding of how well their children are achieving academically. Moving on to the next slide, when we asked more specifically about grade level achievement in math and reading, parents also expressed high confidence. So across race, ethnicity, income level, geography, almost 90% of parents said their kids were at or above grade level in math, and 92% said that they were at or above grade level in reading. And it's important to note that this has been relatively consistent since we first started tracking this data point back in 2016. And we believe that this disconnect between parent perceptions of their child's achievement and the reality have profound implications for families and students in middle school, high school, and beyond. So moving to the next slide. So why so much confidence, especially at a time when it seems like we're inundated almost on a daily basis with new data about the extent of COVID learning loss? We believe part of the reason is report card grades. It's one data point parents receive and easily access. And if you look at this slide, you'll see that 80% of parents say their kids get mostly B's and above on their report cards. And we also know that parents rank report cards as the top measure to gauge whether or not their child is at grade level. And while report cards we know are certainly important, they reflect participation in class and attendance and assignments handed in, many parents don't always understand the subjective nature of report cards. Meanwhile, when we talk to teachers, teachers say that ongoing communication, that partnership between the family and the teacher, is the best way to understand your child's grade level progress. And I would also say the best way to explore post-secondary pathways. Moving to the next slide. The disconnect between perception and reality, as I mentioned, has been a real focus of ours at Learning Heroes. And we believe it has significant implications on a student's ability to succeed in school and ultimately in whatever path they choose after high school. And along with our partners, we've created a lot of tools and resources and campaigns to help parents partner with their child's teacher and to make sure the child has the skills that they need to succeed in whatever pathway that they choose beyond high school. And this is one of many examples of a tool that we've created with partners. It's called Paths to Success. It includes very actionable steps to help the child be ready for high school and beyond, with ideas for how to partner with the child's teacher and counselor, choose the right classes, start the financial aid process early. You can find Paths to Success on our website, and it's also in the chat. But I also wanted to highlight another great resource from our friends at Great Schools, and it's called Transforming High School, the Transforming High School website, which asks, what kind of high school do we need in the 21st century? For families, it includes information on what's possible, what works, and how you can advocate for equitable transformational changes at your child's high school. And for educators, it includes ideas and information to share with parents to help power innovation and equity in your school or district. So with that, I will close, go to the next slide, and
David, actually, while we're building off of this research and the great work you just shared, and of course the campaigns you just touched on, is there any kind of learnings that we can glean from those campaigns about how to effectively reach and engage families?
yes, thank you, Farhad. I know some of you are aware of a campaign we launched back in April of this year called Go Beyond Grades in partnership with Univision, the National Summer Learning Association, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. This was supported by the Gates Foundation, Overdeck Family Foundation, and Citadel. And it was a national awareness campaign designed to build and strengthen relationships between families and teachers. Again, it's all about creating that partnership. And it includes a national website, gobeyondgrades.org, and also local landing pages in 6 major cities that featured very simple calls to action for families. So centered on ask the teacher if your child is on grade level. We called it the ABCs. Ask your teacher if your child is on grade level. B, be in the know about your child's learning and what's expected in each grade. And C, connect to summer learning programs like tutoring camps, jobs, and more. So we promoted the landing page through social media. We had parent and educator video testimonials, ads, earned media, family workshops, and a lot more. And we were able to reach 630,000 families just through the website visits and video views alone, not to mention all of the other social media, billboards, and so forth. And I believe a couple of our parent videos are in the chat. But the most exciting thing to see for me was the information we received when Edge Research conducted an evaluation of the timeline, because we found that the campaign not only generated awareness, it garnered action. So parents who recalled the campaign were more than twice as likely to take specific actions that were recommended in the campaign. So for instance, 55% of high school parents who saw campaign messaging asked their child's teacher if their child was at grade level, compared to 22% who had not seen the messaging. And among middle school parents, this is just an example, 40% said they asked their child's teacher about summer learning opportunities versus 13% who did not see the messaging. So what I'd love to leave you with is a positive note, which I believe is so important right now, given how polarized our nation is and the impact of COVID on learning. It is possible to move the needle. We saw the needle move through carefully crafted messaging, through partnerships, through a surround sound approach. And while no one idea or one resource or one campaign is enough, it can certainly assist in the long road of recovery.
Well said, David. Thank you so much. And we'll come back to you at the end when we have the conversation. So thank you for the wisdom and knowledge. I want to also just share with everyone that you can expect the recording and this presentation to be shared subsequently. So there's some questions around writing content and websites down too fast, so don't worry about it. Everything will be provided again. So moving on to our first bright spot is the wonderful folks at the Student Leadership Network and the Young Women's Leadership School of the Bronx. I want to welcome in John Rory, who's the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer for Student Leadership Network. And as the organization's first CIO, he oversees program planning and implementation across the network. And the wonderful Devin Eisenberg, who's the principal of the Young Women's Leadership School of the Bronx, an all-girls school founded to educate young women and give them the confidence, skills necessary to succeed in college, their careers, and their community. So a bit of framing. While college and career pathway strategies have proven effective at improving outcomes for those involved, access and quality often remain uneven. Too often, historically marginalized learners, particularly Black and Latinx learners and learners experiencing poverty, do not have the same opportunities as their peers. So I am hoping that John and Devin, for you to share a little bit more about your organizations and your work connected to the power of family engagement and post-secondary success and access.
Happy to do so, Farhad. First of all, thank you, Carnegie, the U.S. Department of Education, as well as the Overdeck Family Foundation for having us and allowing us to participate in this conversation. A quick overview about the organization. I encourage everybody to visit our website to learn a little bit more. What we've been really focused on over the last 25 plus years is really addressing some of the historical as well as the existing inequities in our education system, particularly around who has access to information and who has the supports necessary to help students and their families really navigate a complicated process for how to set themselves up for viable post-secondary outcomes. Just to give you a sense about our student population, the vast majority of our students identify as the first in their family to go to college. Over 80% of those students qualify for free and reduced lunch, as well as 80% of our students identify as students of color. And so as we dive into this, nationwide, we've really been partnering with close to 50 schools. So we either partner with them or we affiliate with them. A lot of the core work that you'll hear has started here in New York City, but over the past few years, we've been expanding nationally. And some of the strengths, I would say, about the program elements that I'll describe in just a second are really focused on strong school culture and a real strong focus on making sure that our students have strong post-secondary outcomes. And family engagement is a real critical part of that process. So just to give you a quick overview of our programmatic elements, as we move on to the next slide, our organization really started with the founding of the first all-girls public high school here in New York City over 25 years ago. And in that process, we identified a gap in the system, and I believe much of that still exists today. The typical student counselor to student ratio in our country is about 460 to 1. And not all of those individuals are necessarily positioned or given the opportunity or trained to facilitate sort of the college elements of helping students prepare for post-secondary readiness. And so back in 2001, we started the College Bound Initiative, which was really around placing full-time directors of college counseling, not only in the girls' schools that we helped found, but also in co-ed public schools that, again, serve the same demographic that I described earlier. And over the years, those programs have evolved and expanded, and we've captured some of our best practices. And nationwide, we helped create an affiliate network of young women's leadership schools that have modeled themselves after New York City. And we've gone beyond college access to really support some of our students around college enrollment and college persistence. So again, our website has more. And, I think when we consider the work, regardless of what vehicle or model we identify, as we start looking at the next slide, we've had historical inequities in our country. And as we look at some of the data here provided by the National Student Clearinghouse, and we begin to identify who historically, and at least in this case, David referred to sort of the pandemic, we could look at the class of 2020 and the class of 2021. The reality is that historically we've had an inequity around who accesses higher education. And back in 2020, right around the pandemic, right before the pandemic, it was about 20%. And just 1 year later, post-pandemic, you see sort of these disparities widen to really 26%. And so just to help everybody qualify sort of what these comparison groups are, there are about 8,700 high schools that participate in the National Student Clearinghouse High School Report. And the distinction here is that high poverty schools, as indicated in the aqua, are schools that have about 80% of their students qualifying for free and reduced lunch. So for our organization, that's sort of our one-to-one comparison and helps us understand how we're working towards addressing some of these inequities. And again, as David alluded to earlier, many of our families' aspirations are around pursuing college. Sometimes the aspirations and the realities in their school buildings don't necessarily align to that aspiration because the supports and sort of the programmatic elements are not necessarily equally distributed across schools when you start thinking about the populations that we serve. And so just to give you a quick highlight, and then we'll dive in, and I ask Devin to join me to talk a little bit more about the importance of family engagement. As we dive into some of our comparative analysis with this National Student Clearinghouse data over time, both within our Young Women's Leadership Schools, which again have directors of college counseling through CBI, and our College Bound Initiative, which works in co-ed public schools here in New York City primarily. If we go on to the next slide, you'll see sort of the impact that it's had. The blue line at the bottom really reflects the student demographic that was previously shared on the prior graph, right? So students attending high poverty high schools, their college enrollment is there indicated by the blue line. And then their high income counterparts nationwide is indicated by the green line. So you can see through our programmatic interventions and supports and partnership with schools and families, our College Bound Initiative equals that or supersedes that of their high income peers nationwide. And when we isolate for just the young women in our Young Women's Leadership Schools who get support from College Bound Initiative, it's even that much bigger of a difference. And so I think what we focused on, what we hang our hats on is really we've demonstrated for many years, more than 25 years, what can happen when you allocate the right resources and the right attention and really engage your school community and your parents to really support and uplift our students' potential and put them on a pathway for viable post-secondary success. And so I'll
Well
pause
said.
there.
Yeah, John, this is incredible. Congratulations on this great success. But just pushing a little bit, share some of the challenges and opportunities on how you've adjusted and adapted a traditional college access org process to incorporate some of the multiple pathways we've been talking about to create real access for your students in your care. And I'm eager to get Devin into this conversation as well. But please.
Absolutely. So just briefly, look, although we're leading with college, obviously our intent is really to provide tailored support for each and every one of our students and our families. And so while our name says college in it, it's really more broadly about viable post-secondary outcomes from day one. The minute we started this organization, it was really about identifying what the students' interests and passions were and really putting them in a pathway there. And so that holds true today. And I think post-pandemic, as we all adjust to sort of changes in mindset and some of the adjustments that our students and families did have to make around employment opportunities and the need for income during some of these trying times. And also, I believe that the volume around, historically, oftentimes college, it was like college versus career. And I think we're all angling that it's really a college and career. It's not either or, and they both support one another. And many of the skills that our students learn and some of the supports that they need are comparable. And so how do we build towards that? So we started doing more information sessions on alternative pathway programs. Similar to college fairs, we are introducing our families and our students to more viable options that are not your traditional 2 or 4 year college. We are also trying to identify more resources. And so when you reference challenges, Farhad, I think one of the greatest challenges is conceptually our ideas around having students get greater exposure to career opportunities early and have that dialogue is super critical. And I think students should have the ultimate choice as to what pathway they pursue. But I don't think we're at a stage now where sort of the infrastructure to help support and inform students in making educated decisions about their post-secondary pathways, they're not on level playing grounds as we think about it. We spent the last 20 plus years helping students and families, and I say we collectively, getting more information around what colleges mean. We have viable websites like Big Future, we have the EdTrust, collegeresults.org, and plenty of other resources like Niche, where folks can get information at the drop of a button. That sort of infrastructure, what are the viable post-secondary outcomes that are not college oriented, how to access that information on either websites or materials, what the long-term outcomes of some of these programs, we have to work collectively to really elevate those opportunities and create infrastructure similar to the college pathways so that, again, families and students can be really informed about what their decision-making process is for life after high school.
Well said. So let's pull Devin in. Devin, as a school leader, so many folks on this call are desperate to hear from you. Can you shed some light on the power of partnerships and supporting young people to navigate career pathways and unlock career success, and show off a little bit about your school as well, please?
Absolutely. So we're a relatively new school. We've only been in existence for 11 years, and our first graduating class was in 2019. And I think what John's talking about of this shift in culture after COVID is really real. The community where my school is one of the hardest in the country for COVID in terms of people being sick, dying, unemployment, all of those things, and it changed things. So this year, New York City launched a new program that we jumped on and partnered with, where we're providing our students more work-based learning opportunities. And we also know just throwing work-based learning opportunities at them, saying you can have an internship, isn't going to help them be successful. So now in our 9th and 10th grade, we've embedded a course that all of our students have to take in terms of being career ready. And that's on top of the college ready courses we do, the AP courses we do, and all of that, but really showing them what does it mean to have a career? What skills do you need to be successful in a career? And then once they are able to obtain those skills, then helping support them to get internships as early as the end of their sophomore year. So that's kind of the shift we're making. And then we also are combining for next year, our college access team and our work-based learning team. Those were two teams working a bit separately, and they need to be working together in order to support our students and their families in the best ways possible. So that's a big shift we're making for the 2023-2024 school year.
That's incredible. Devin, thank you. And John, let's just go into some of the structural and cultural transitions that we talked about a little bit. And I can see some of these slides here are really focused on how you are engaging families even more. So please continue to share a little bit more of your wisdom.
Yeah, I'll tag team a little bit with Devin here. We'll go back and forth, but I also wanted to share with the audience that we will have a resource that we will share out. Devin and I both refer to sort of college and career ready culture. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there's some infrastructure needs that I believe need to happen. And we created a deck that we'll share out that includes some exemplars as well as some links to some resources that might help school educators really build up some of their career oriented ways, learning lessons for how we created college going cultures over the last 20 years. But really just wanted to really highlight a few of the effective practices around family engagement and allow, have Devin sort of jump in here to share a few real key examples here. But I certainly think outreach is critical here. Obviously, I referenced earlier online resources and communication. How do we really centralize some of those resources for our students and families? So again, that they could become educated sort of decision makers in that process. And I think collaboration is another point that I'll underscore here. It's so critical, the work that we do with Devin, other school faculty and staff, along with parents, to really get all on the same page around what we want and aspire for our students, and then create the supports necessary to get them there. So Devin, I'll pass to you if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, absolutely. I can touch upon a few specific things we do that I think really help engage our families in the process. We're a grade 6 to 12 school, so we have the benefit of being able to start talking to our families and engaging them in this work when their kids are 10, 11 years old. We start talking about college and they look at us like, they're 10, right? But we're getting them in that process then. And we start doing family college trips in the 6th grade, getting our parents and the kids together on a college campus, because as John shared, so many of our students are first generation college students. So if we're not showing them what it means to be on a college campus, we're kind of talking in a world that they don't know what that looks like. So we really bring them into that. And I think another way that we really engage our parents is we all talk a lot about bringing alumni back, right? And how when our kids see kids from their school being successful, that helps them. But a big thing we do is we bring alumni parents back. So when we're doing family workshops about what does college look like, what does career readiness look like, we're having alumni parents come in and they're working with the parents, talking about their personal experiences they had when they were supporting their kids through the process. And that gives our parents somebody that they can relate to, ask questions to, and kind of form a mentorship with them, right? Because a lot of times they stay in touch and that parent continues to help support maybe the parent of a rising junior or senior through this process. And one last thing I'll touch upon is so many colleges do partnerships and they will send current students to your high school and have them help teach college readiness courses as well. Talk about what it's like being in a PWI institution, how to advocate for yourself on campus. And they're hearing that from college students firsthand, which is a great benefit for them as well.
Awesome. Devin and John, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. We are going to move on to the next section. We'll bring you back for the conversation at the end, and then we'll dive into some of these resources again. Again, as John noted, these resources will be shared again. It is now my great opportunity, and I mean, how lucky am I to be able to share all of these bright spots. So Dr. Jose Enriquez and Angela Puertas are leaders at Latinos in Action. Dr. Enriquez is the founder and CEO of Latinos in Action. He's a former Title III director of the state of Utah and an 11-year school district and state administrator. Angela Puertas is the family engagement specialist at Latinos in Action, and she is a passionate advocate for inclusivity and parental involvement in education. So welcome to you both. And just want to kind of kick it off by saying that when done right, we know that college and career pathways provide intentional career-aligned courses that span secondary and post-secondary and embed work-based learning experiences, the sum of which can lead to credentials of value. So Latinos in Action has purposely partnered so well with middle schools, high schools, and now traditional higher ed institutions to ensure this both and reality. And I'm just hoping that you can take a few minutes to help us better understand the growing work of Latinos in Action around family engagement, focus on college and careers, and we'll take the conversation from there. So welcome.
Thank you so much. And I'll let Angela chime in here in a bit. I just want to say thank you to, again, U.S. Department of Education, Carnegie, and Overdeck Family Foundation for this opportunity, and all those watching. What's exciting to us is that our youth, and I say in Spanish, tienen hambre, they're hungry. And they so want to do so much more than I think we offer at times. We know that our young people can infiltrate that home. And I'm gonna start there. I want us to understand that our youth already come with assets and talents and brilliance. And so we capitalize on that. We felt and feel that if our young people are involved, engaged from middle school and on, and I'm also going to talk about elementary in a bit, then the parents obviously will be there as well. Once we get the parents there, then we go from there, right? So family engagement to us really is familia. Like our kids say, you can't spell familia without Latinos in action. We are in about 400 schools, 5 different states, continuing to grow, over 10,000 students that are actively engaged. It's a course. This is not an after-school program. It's not a club. It's a course, an elective course in the middle school and high school. In some states like Washington, Idaho, Utah, and soon to be Florida as well, it's a dual enrollment course. So they actually get credit, leadership credit for taking this course. But what we've seen, and as I will introduce Angela right now and how we get families engaged, what we've seen and we know is that our young people are the ones who are mostly also engaged in translation when they go with the parents anywhere. They're the ones really doing a lot of help with our parents. So what we have captured is that we know that if we help our young people understand all these different services that are being provided and understand college and career, et cetera, that they're gonna not only do it themselves, but they're gonna engage their parents. And that's who we need in this work. And so I'm gonna have Angela kind of introduce herself. And then what I wanna do is really give you what is Latinos in Action and how we've infiltrated that home with our parents.
Awesome, thank you, Jose. Yes, my name is Angela, and a lot of what John and Devin were saying resonated with me as well. We work with so many kids that are first generation to have ever attended college. And a lot of the parents, what I love about family engagement is that it's not parent training, right? We're engaging them. And we go in and we want feedback. And I've been able to build a lot of relationships with the parents that now I'm invited to weddings and graduations and birthday parties and things like that because of all of the information that we've been able to share together and build a really strong relationship. I would say that one of the most important things that I have tried to focus on is coming to the parents in their native language. I teach everything in Spanish. I prepare things in English as well, but I didn't want them to have things translated for them. And I want them to feel comfortable speaking in their own language. So we come to them and speak to them in their language and really try to inform them about our educational system here and empower them so that they're not scared of going to the school, and that they feel like it's a very approachable place and very comfortable and somewhere that they are always able to go and ask any questions about.
In this next deck, in this slide, let me just kind of help you understand, sorry, the 4 essentials to Latinos in Action. And with each essential, what you're gonna see is that they are actually involving the parents. The first essential is we know that all our youth, our Latino youth in our school systems, they're not all the same. They're diverse in so many different ways. So this first essential is a 30-40-30 model. The makeup of the class is that 30% of the class, our kids are doing well. They understand the system. They have parents who understand the system. They have parents who have had a sibling or somebody who has made it and done well. We need those parents engaged and these students in this class. We have the other 40%, most of them, the bulk of this class are 2.0 or 2.8 type student coasting through the motions of school. Very important to be engaged because sometimes they're the invisible kids. Your long-term English learners, your kids that are really not getting engaged in school. And then your other 30% are your English learners, your ESL students who come with so much passion, brilliance, but don't always have a place where they can show that brilliance and talent. And sometimes are put in ELD courses all day. And so their BICS and their CALPs, their cognitive academic language, basic and interpersonal communicative skills kind of stay in that circle. If you were to put them in a class like this, where they're all interacting and helping each other, that much more powerful. Same thing with the parents, right? Second essential is that we know that if we have a purpose for young people, they come together and they not only show you their talents, but they give so much more. So the purpose in this class is for them to also twice a week mentor and tutor younger Hispanic or kids that are struggling in literacy at the local elementary. Of course, one-on-one research will show you that's where it's at, right? It's powerful. It also prepares a pipeline of leaders that soon will also turn into Latinos in Action at the middle school and high school. We've seen 20 years of this. Not only do we have educators come out of this, build your own educators, but professionals. A lot of energy here in that second essential. It's so important. I could talk days on that. Our third essential is that they're put into committees, service committee, social committee, and professional committee. These kids are driving social events, service events, and professional events. And each of those committees has a VP and a president, a secretary of the class, and even an ESL student can be the VP or president of the class. It's not a cognitive, it's a language thing. And in Spanish, they can present in Spanish. They know what an agenda looks like, what a proposal looks like. They will build their skills no matter what portion of tiers they come in. They are going to develop those skill sets and getting them ready for career in college. Obviously, that also engages parents in their service projects, their social events, parent nights. It's all driven by students, right? They invite the parents, the service committee sets up, social committee has entertainment and food, professional committee has the content, delivering it to the parents, teacher sits in the back, very much student empowerment. And then our fourth essential is our curriculum. If they're not in committee and if they're not serving and tutoring, then the teacher's delivering an I do, we do, you do, gradual release curriculum, culturally responsive, college career readiness, service learning, leadership curriculum. That in a nutshell is Latinos in Action. We engage the parents in every one of these processes and essentials to what we do.
That's incredible. So I just want to drill a little bit down into your partnerships, specifically, Angela, like with middle school, high schools, and institutions of higher education, right? We'd love to learn a little bit about the ways Latinos in Action is helping partners better understand the amazing assets of the students and families served by Latinos in Action they already possess and how this partnerships impacts that work. Let's double click a little bit more into that. Angela, over to you.
Sure, definitely. So we not only work with the kids and help them practice mock interviews, knowing how to interview, we help them step by step, knowing how to fill out paperwork to apply for colleges. We bring in different counselors and financial aid people from different universities in our area to come in that are Spanish speakers, help the parents, teach them all about different opportunities and scholarships that are out there. We take the kids on tour of different universities and really just try to instill in them the importance of continuing their education. We've brought parents in whose children have been successful and talk about the process and what it was like for them. I think a lot of it is just lack of knowledge. A lot of times the parents have lack of knowledge and don't really know how to be involved. And then they wait until their kids are seniors in high school and say, I guess we are too late to do these things. So we try to teach them at a much younger age and just kind of hold their hand through the process and empower them. And it's been really amazing just to see the results of that. We have a lot of success stories, and we have quite a few people that are teaching now that are alumni from Latinos in Action that are so passionate about it that they've come back and they want to teach and share their knowledge with the future generation as well.
That's incredible. So can we just stay there for just a second about, like, in addition to the partnerships, empowering the young people and engaging families with this curriculum, all this work, just connect some of these dots a little bit more for our listeners, because this is incredibly intentional, purposeful, and both and. Yes, please just share a little bit more about those promising examples.
So let me give you a perfect example. Even during the pandemic, right? We knew that our kids were used to serving, leading. They're out in the community a lot, and obviously now they're stuck in their homes. So Intermountain Healthcare, one of our partners in the community, came to us and said, how can we help this? We had also Midas Education, who did some certification for our parents, came, and we got together and we said, can our students at home, while at home, screen their parents for social determinants of health, diabetes, high blood pressure, mental health, stroke? Just screen them. So can Intermountain Healthcare train our students to screen two adults, their parents, abuelita, tia, aunt, mom. And what we saw was powerful because they had to show their evidence of learning. And if they did, then they were stamped and received a micro credential from Midas Education, who usually just micro credentialed adults and educators. And now they're micro credentialing our students. But what happened there is that now we didn't want to go away from that. Can we micro credential our students, not only in health, but finance, for them to teach their parents about interest rate, about credit scores, and so forth, and then show evidence of learning and receive a micro credential in finance or para-ed to ed. So there was a lot that came of it because of the partnerships we had with parents now, as well as the private sector, right?
That's remarkable. So we're on this wonderful slide. Can you share some?
Sure, that slide right there, Farhad, is interesting. So before I start teaching a course, I give the parents a survey, and there's lots and lots of questions, and it's asking pretty much whose responsibility is your child's mental health, their attendance, their grades, their homework, everything. And it's very overwhelming that the parents mark that it's the school's responsibility. They have to work, they have a lot of things going on, so it's the school's job. And by the end of the course, I give them that, and it's really incredible to see the shift that we were able to educate them enough, and so they were able to realize that it really is the parents' responsibility, sometimes hand in hand with the school and their children, but by far it's the parents' responsibility. And we want them to not have these negative perceptions about school anymore. We don't want them to think that their cultural or linguistic backgrounds are holding them back, but actually empowering them to be able to be more involved. So it's been great.
That's fantastic. And I just want to go back to our previous conversation about partnering specifically with higher ed institution. Angela, you talked about pulling in the funds of knowledge from there in terms of making sure that your families can benefit from the knowledge of the higher ed institution. Jose, I really respect and appreciate the power of your students and your families, and also impacting the higher ed institutions. Can you share a little bit more about just how the higher ed partners are benefiting for their partnership with Latinos in Action?
Definitely. We have seen a tremendous increase in partnerships with our universities and colleges. What we began to see, and also the universities, is that more and more of our students were not just applying to get to the universities and colleges, but they're applying to their scholarships. They began to see this. And usually annually, we have a leadership conference that we host at every close by university. So in Florida, we have one at FAU, UCF, USF, and we have boot camps at Palm Beach State College. We have Valencia College. So we partner because we want our kids on campus. The spring conference brings them all together, 2,500 students. We have a keynote, we have workshops, but more than anything, we want them on campus to have them see themselves there, actively engaged with the alumni. Now, right, we have chapters of Latinos in Action at our universities and colleges because we want them to be involved. I think earlier somebody said, hey, to have kids come back and tell our young seniors and juniors, here's what the first year of college looks like. There's nothing more powerful, right? So we began to have college chapters at all our universities and colleges near our schools where we have a lot of Latinos in Action. This partnership has been tremendous because obviously we can begin, again, to talk, not just getting them to the table, not just being an HSI, but actually doing something with that acknowledgement of an HSI, right? Like, what are we doing with it now? So our goal is not just to take them and bring them to the table, but to retain them and finish that college or career, right? Definitely as well.
That's beautiful. We're going to dive a little bit more into that when we get all the panelists together. For now, thank you, Angela and Jose. We're going to move to our third and final bright spot, which is the Education Strategy Group and Boston Public Schools. I have the great privilege to invite in Heather Justice, who leads Education Strategy Group's work on career readiness and aligning high-quality K-12 post-secondary and industry pathways. And of course, the wonderful Marcia Innes Mitchell, who is the Executive Director of Post-Secondary Initiatives initiatives at Boston Public Schools in Massachusetts. So I would love to kind of continue on with the conversation about how we talk about the need for a both and reality when it comes to post-secondary systems, meaning a dynamic that honors college and careers so learners can earn credentials of value and are well positioned to be economic mobile, which in turn, of course, supports local community economies. So in that way, Heather, can you just take a few minutes to help us better understand education strategy groups work specifically around family engagement, focus on college and career access, and then we can pull the similar question for Marcia.
Yeah. Thanks, Farhad, and thanks for having us. We're really grateful to be here. So to the point, and I know there's a link in the chat for you to explore a little more about ESG, but we're an education consulting firm that's really driven by this conviction that a robust education system is one that's aligned with workforce need, and doing so actually leads to a stronger, more equitable society, right? So that the more learners who actually have credentials of value can kind of get to that economic mobility that we mentioned. And so really this kind of starts with unpacking your regional labor market information and context and pulling those K-12 higher ed workforce partners together to build pathways for students that have actual high demand living wage opportunities. And that this regional and community context really matters because it's very different, as you heard our different panelists already talk about. But though I am a nerd and love digging into labor market information, that's not something we typically teach our educators, right? And so communicating that becomes kind of difficult when you're not even really comfortable in like making labor market sexy and unpacking that for students and families, right? And so we really work with partners. I think Farhad, you mentioned something earlier that was like the power of partnerships. And we work really across states, districts, and schools to bring that K-12 higher ed 2-year, 4-year workforce partners together to kind of think about systems change so that we're solving those seamless transitions from a systems perspective, such that the transition of students into higher ed in the workforce isn't on the backs of them to navigate, but that rather our partners are doing that work for them on the front end, and then developing that with family and student voice. Just kind of mimicking it. It's not training, it's engagement, right? Like that we're developing these pathways with students, not to students.
So before we turn it over to Marcia, Heather, just want to push a little bit more in terms of supporting schools to broaden, sharpen, and increase capacity, right? Like specifically the work you're leading to help schools and families understand and incorporate tools. Can you share some of the challenges and some of the kind of the pragmatic ways that is this starting to stick? I just would love our audience to benefit from the great work that ESG is leading with these school partners, and then we're going to benefit from Marcia's wisdom.
Yeah, thanks. And I know we'll place a link in the chat here too, to some resources here specifically. And I think we kind of tackle this from a top-down, bottom-up approach to meet in the middle, right? So first, we work with our partners across K-12 and higher ed and the workforce to really think about what career and college advising looks like, and double clicking on the career advising to make sure that from a systems perspective, there's early awareness and exploration and engagement of students in careers. They understand the needs of post-secondary as a part of that career journey. It's a stop in the destination, right? It's required for you to kind of level up and advance that living wage. And a part of that has to be social capital, occupational identity, and how you take that passion of students, but also expose them to what those careers actually are, because they only know what they know and they only know what they're exposed to at school. And if we don't kind of broaden that horizon, then we can't, I think Dr. Lloyd said, finding jobs in their own hometowns, right? And we can't break the cycle of poverty in their hometown if we don't solve for that at a systems level. But you have to be able to provide resources before the system is solved, right? None of us would be having this conversation if the systems were solved. And so over the last few years, ESG has been working in support with Carnegie on some resources to physically put in the hands of individuals around communicating labor market information and multiple different pathway options to students and families. And as a result of many, many conversations with schools and district partners, really thinking about what is a communications toolkit that you can actually use? How could you have strategies, social media campaigns, one-pagers, infographics, postcard mailers to just physically put resources and tools in the hands of students and families to help them understand what those options are and what they look like, and frankly, combat some stigmas that exist as well in their community, right?
Well said, Heather. Thank you so much. All right, Marcia, over to you. We want to make sure that we understand some of the challenges and opportunities in the Boston public school system around this important topic that you're leading in collaboration with Education Strategy Group and other partners as well. So just talk to us a little bit about those challenges, the opportunities, frame for us the demographics that you're dealing with at Boston Public Schools and some of the impact that you've seen. So easy stuff.
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It is definitely a pleasure to be here and talk about this very important topic to us here locally within the Boston Public Schools. A little bit about our district, really, before we dive in. We are the largest urban school district within the New England region. About 1 in 2 of our young people speak another language other than English within their homes, right? And so that is something that we have to really work around and with and through and elevate and celebrate the fact that we have a large population of multilingual learners coming from rich cultural backgrounds on the ground within our family communities. 70% of our students are economically disadvantaged, and the majority do identify as students of color. Along with our rich diversity, we also have a diverse portfolio of schools and pathway types. So across our 34 high schools and diploma granting programs, we have pathways that fall in the bucket of early college, where students are able to attain 12 credits, innovation pathways, where they can attain both technical experiences and coursework, as well as college level coursework and career and technical education pathways as well. But the challenge here is that not all of our students are having access to the schools where these pathways exist. And of our 16,000 high school students, only about a little under 3,000 of our students have access to one or more of these pathway opportunities. And this really requires us to design a system of college career planning that really allows for choice making, right? During pivotal points in the students' school experience. We have utilized ESG and the resources that they bring to the table to really support us in doing that. And they've served as a resource hub. And over the past 3 years, ESG has been a strategic partner in our citywide collective impact initiative called New Skills Boston, focusing on the expansion of career pathways. So more students in our open enrollment schools who have been historically marginalized can really have access to pathways in industry recognized fields aligned to our local labor market in the areas of biotechnology, healthcare, as well as business and finance. And as you can imagine, right, this way of doing school can feel jarring to some of our families. And that's why making sure that as part of the exploratory process, we are incorporating these resources where parents are seeing some of the labor market data as they're making sense of pathway options available to their young person within their school. We're also having to do this earlier than ever, right? So as students are making choices between the 8th and 9th grade, and then 9th and 10th grade, we need to make sure that we're drilling down programming within our middle grade. So a core focus of our work here in Boston has been the expansion of our career and academic planning system. You'll hear me refer to that as MyCap, where students are engaged in a foundational set of experiences each year across 3 domains: career development, personal, social, and college and career and academic planning. What I'm going to do is kindly ask for the scope and sequence for our MyCap grades 6 through 12 document to be placed in the chat, as well as the family scope and sequence, which is really intended to serve as a roadmap to our families, our guardians, our parents, and offer some extension engagement opportunities as they are dialoguing with their young person about their futures. You will see, once you have an opportunity to look at that scope and sequence document, for example, in the 9th grade, we have an optimizing my learning experience where students complete a SMART goal, connected to their futures. And there is a learning and productivity assessment that they complete. And as part of the experience, we provide prompts to our parents on how to set goals between them and their child based on that overarching SMART goal. So this has been a significant shift in the ways in which we have begun to do business with parents, and we're seeing a lot of increases in our students accessing, beginning, and completing their career and academic planning process at the rate of 70% in some of our grade band cohorts. So that's pretty exciting shifts, and we appreciate the collaboration with ESG as well as our other cross-sector partners, our higher ed communities, our nonprofit agencies, our foundations on the ground here in Boston.
So Marcia, I'm going to ask you a question that wasn't in our prep because we have a little bit of time, but I just given the precision with which you shared the challenges, the resources that you've developed, along with families, along with your educators, your fellow educators. Boston has incredible opportunities as well with this business community. And I'm just wondering how you've started to align them or pull them in so that they can be equal partners and not just looking for, enough workers and then they move on. So like, just say a little bit about bringing them in as part of the ecosystem at Boston that you're trying to build through MyCap and some of the other works.
At the table, we have a rich partner community. So we work very closely with the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development to create some of that alignment, as well as our Workforce Investment Board, called the Boston Private Industry Council. And they also serve as an intermediary in this pathway development process and really bring in the business community to engage our young people in work-based learning, to look at ways to infuse some of these strategies into the core curriculum within the pathways and really strengthen our program of studies. And so students have a breadth and depth of work-based learning as well as internship opportunities that's aligned to their pathways each year.
That's remarkable. And thank you so much for sharing all this amazing stuff. Listen, I'm a kid from New York, right? So for me to say all these nice things about Boston means that you're doing some incredibly impressive work. But kidding aside, Marcia, Heather, thank you so much for providing this third bright spot. I am going to now encourage all of our panelists to join back on, unmute and turn your videos on. But before I dive into more questions with all of our panelists, I do want to remind everyone again to please put all of your questions that you have for us in the Zoom Q&A, please. And we'll be getting to them a little later in the webinar. But we're going to now dive into these questions. I'm going to pick on John, Rory, and Marcia for the first one, which is, again, as we believe in a more coherent, responsive post-secondary system designed for diverse learners so that all people who aspire to college are prepared and supported to achieve, while building the career learning that Marcia was just talking about into our existing institutions of higher ed. This is much easier said than done, but so continue on some of the challenges you have faced in adjusting and adapting. The skills, the results are great, the impact is fantastic, but as our colleagues are listening in, and let's have them make new mistakes and learn from the mistakes and challenges we've had. So John and Marcia, can you just share a little bit of the challenges you've faced in adjusting and adapting your services to better engage families? That's the concrete question.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges are much like anything else. It's really, how do you set the priority? What is the intentionality? How do you collaborate and then dedicate the time to establish what it is we all aspire to establish? So I'll just share quickly before I pass it over to Marcia, sort of a micro and a macro example. Here in the schools that we work with principals like Devin, it's relatively easy to have like-minded individuals really do the best on behalf of our students and our families and make the effort to coordinate the services, provide the resources, and have that ongoing dialogue with our students and our families from grades 6 through 12 or whatever sort of the duration is. I think the bigger challenge really exists at a systemic level. And we're fortunate here to work in New York City, where I think the ecosystem around college and career readiness in alignment with the Department of Education is relatively good. And just to share one quick bright spot of New York City, the Chancellor David Banks had commissioned Pathways Advisory Committee. Okay, and so this was to think about the challenges that we're all discussing right now at the highest level, and it was a very inclusive process. We had over 20 organizations that were either nonprofits, principals, and or Department of Education leadership in a room over the past 4 months, really reinventing and reimagining what sort of the advisory system and advisory programs look like here in New York City to really set the groundwork for a pilot that's being launched this summer that sort of brings together college and career in a way that hasn't been done before. And inherent in that conversation, when you have 22 plus representatives in the room, you begin to identify the challenges within the challenges, right? And so understanding that we're already shortchanged around school counselors across the city, understanding that resources aren't necessarily equally distributed in many of our districts, and addressing sort of where the greatest needs are all things that were brought up. But sort of the practitioners, the counselors, those voices in the room also elevate that understanding and navigating and learning the process for supporting students and families through college isn't necessarily the same as it is for supporting families and students through the career exploration process, so on and so forth. And so there needs to be a level of training, there needs to be a level of resource coordination, and there needs to be a level of understanding of what is the bandwidth of a particular individual versus that position possibly being reimagined and expanded to better support the needs. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we still have an issue just around student to counselor ratios, let alone the responsibilities that we expect counselors to demonstrate or be experts at to support families and hundreds of families at a given point in time. So Marsha, I'll pass it over to you.
Sure. What I'll say here is this. I do not think that there is one ideal college and career planning instrument that fully meets the needs of all of our learners or the desire that we have on the ground as a district to uplift both technical and academic and college pathways in an equitable way. So within our MyCap structure, we anchor those experiences within a platform that really documents the students' learning over time. And we want to be very responsible in the experiences and the activities that we're putting in front of our people, in front of our young people, making sure that is honoring the need for them to drive this and that it feels iterative for them. And we're not steering them in just one particular direction. And so what we've done is we've invested at the district level in a function that really looks at flexible ways to incorporate these experiences for all of our learners. And this function really focuses on looking at all types of different instruments. And this person also has a really strong background in special education, which helps because that's a large percentage of our young people on the ground, and making sure that we're meeting their needs and they feel immersed in that experience as well is really critical. So that has really been a value add to the district level systems work and really interrogating our systems to see where the inequities are. The other piece, and it was already brought up, is the capacity and lack of school counseling particularly within our middle grade. So while we as a district have invested in 9th grade school counselors, we do still have a gap in our middle grade counselors to be a part of a team leading this work. And as a result, we have adapted by working closer with our community-based agencies within that space and providing them with adequate training so they can incorporate this model into their scope and sequence as they're interfacing within their community and school spaces with our students and our families. So it feels seamless, right? This whole idea of creating that seamlessness, not just between transition points, but between all of the stakeholders that's touching our young people and our families. That's what creates that holistic approach to this work. So we have found really great intentional ways to tackle some of our pressing challenges.
Well said, Marsha. Thank you so much for the candid and then just kind of open on. So moving on to our friends, David and Heather, just want to double click more on some of the tools and practices the field can use today to better communicate pathways trajectory with families. David, then Heather.
Yeah, thanks, Farhad. It's a good question. I know I mentioned a couple in the chat earlier. I would also recommend you look at Excel and Ed. Excel and Ed has some great information on post-secondary pathways. I will put a nod to Heather. The ESG's communications toolkit is a communicator. I loved it. It's in English and Spanish. It has great infographics, so I would certainly look that up. So definitely a +1 on there. But I also want to kind of lift up the importance of information and resources specifically for parents with children who learn differently. And I know that Understood has done a lot of good work in that area and has some good resources there, as well as a number of SEAs and LEAs. I know Washington, DC's state education department, OSSI, has a great report on how to help kids with learning differences explore post-secondary pathways. New York City Department of Education does as well, and others. But I will hand it over to Heather.
Yeah, thanks, David, for the shameless plug. That was awesome. I think I'll elevate just some practices that I think in Farhad, I think in your question for Marcia on our bright spot, you kind of intimated this, but the best practices too are like bringing industry partners in. So where we do traditionally like college fairs and different pieces, like there's a role for your industry partners. I love listening to Dr. Enriquez when he was talking about like, how can your industry reach out? But I think, frankly, especially when you talk about regional labor markets, advanced manufacturing is a perfect example for families who've maybe been laid off in the past when plants have closed down. And now there's this new boom and these occupations look different and the wages are higher. But that's a shift in understanding for families of what it was versus what it is now and where it's going. So the importance of doing career fairs, or frankly, like having an open night where the industry partners open up their doors and parents can actually and family members can go and visit. And I think, frankly, that is where you build your community and you break the generational cycle of poverty. It's not just about the students that you're serving, but then it becomes about their family members too, and shifting that mindset and stigma. So I just want to elevate that any practice where you can get your employer partners engaged to help them shift as well is like a win-win-win, because they're shifting their own talent pipeline, and then you're opening up all of these amazing partnerships.
Heather, thank you so much. Okay, so we've been so authentic and candid and real. I'm going to continue in that spirit. So many teenagers, my incredibly amazing 17-year-old daughter included, bristle at having their parents engage in their school lives to some degree, to a big degree, right? But we know clearly how important family engagement is. So Jose and Angela, please share some of your biggest piece of guidance for decision makers and practitioners listening today on navigating the unique challenges of family engagement with older students. And feel free to add the importance of such engagement and helping students navigate possible career pathways as well. So Jose and Angela, to you.
Yeah, and I'll start, and then Angela could also talk about this giveaway with Microsoft we had, and it was awesome. Let me just start with what Heather just stated as well. The private sector right now, they have so much that they can be engaged with within our students and our parents as well. We just don't knock on their doors enough, and it's really sad, because I think that needs to happen more of. We went to Real Salt Lake, which is the soccer MLS here, and also in Florida, and we said, we want to have a career fair around your bowl. We'll bring 1,000 students if you can bring your all the people that run this stadium, HR, everybody within your stadium, and help our students understand the career. And so that happened the first year. The second year, we said, we'll bring 1,500 if you, and we'll bring their parents with, if you can continue this, and give them a ticket to the game and lunch. And so all these people started like, well, we want to be a part of that, right? And so you have an engagement, a Saturday called Sábado Gigante. It's huge in Spanish, and it's huge. And what happened was beautiful, because you had a career fair around the bowl. You had different career people shifting on different time shifts and talking about careers, and everybody's engaged. The uncool parent now becomes cool, because they're going to watch a Real Salt Lake and LA Galaxy game together with dad, and meet Chicharito, etc. It just became something, and it's a Saturday that we want to plan from here on out. But I think, it's got to be more partnerships. There's just no way we can do this alone. We know that it takes a village. We always say that, but it really does. But we got to get our private sector involved with us as well.
Well said. Angela.
Yes, the first thing that comes to mind for me is just the importance of going to school shouldn't be a negative. It shouldn't be parents just showing up because your child's struggling or got in trouble or having a problem. So I think we really try to encourage the parents to show up and be involved and go to things so that if they can be celebrating their children or feel comfortable if there is a problem. And just to try and go through this quickly, always trying to provide translation, like Marcia was stating, most of the students that we're working with, their parents are Spanish speakers. And so, well, pretty much all of them. And so if the school goes out of their way to try and provide translation, it means so much. And the parents feel like they're heard and that their needs are important. And I think that goes really far. We were really blessed this year. We were able to have a partnership with Microsoft, and they said, we're going to give you 100 laptops to give away to anyone you want. And so we decided to use that for our family engagement. I said, as soon as these kids are graduating high school, their Chromebooks are going to have to go back to the school, and we want to set them up for success. So we told the parents, if you're the parent of a senior, if you come to these classes and finish our course, you will be able to get a laptop. So in the beginning, we had 4 parents showing up, and it was a huge struggle. And by the end, I had 72 parents finish, and a majority of those were men. And I had to teach late at night, and I brought food, and I taught in Spanish, and it was incredible. And just to be able to give them the laptop, but also all of the knowledge and confidence that they earned through the class was amazing.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to continue forward with some questions from the audience. So this is to Devin and then Marcia. How do you collaborate with students and families to set goals for a successful student pathway? Just getting more concrete with what you do there. So Devin and then Marcia about collaborating with students and families to set goals for successful student pathway.
I can start off. I think, again, it's really about the collaboration that we all keep speaking of. And when we're doing these meetings with parents, with students, we bring the families in. Our counselors and our college director of college counseling has one-on-one meetings with all students and their families to make these decisions. It's not done in a silo where we're just meeting with the kid and the family has no clue what's going on. The family is brought in to be a part of all those conversations. And then on different online platforms, we track that throughout the years to make sure that the goals are being met, and also recognizing that the goals could shift. Right? What they say in 6th and 7th grade is going to be radically different from what they tell us in 11th, 12th grade, but being able to track that along the way.
So what I'll say here is that it looks very different across each school. So creating the space to assess the assets of each school partner to really engage in the goal setting and monitoring with the families is key. As part of the pathway school, parents do sign a commitment form along with their student after their student has gone through the exploratory process. Within the MyCap structure, some of our schools do bring parents in for what's called a MyCap portfolio review process, which is a culminating activity where students are able to present and reflect on their career exploration experience, elevate their strengths, skills, their talents based on all of the assessments and kind of follow-up conversations they have with their counselors and partners, engage in reflecting and sharing information on their college and career interests and connecting that to their goals. So families, if they're able to come and they're invited in, can really hear about their young person's progression over time. At this point, the families do not necessarily have access to our college and career planning platform, and that is why we create the conditions where they have no choice but to partner with their young person to get access to that. And so it's our responsibility as the practitioners to increase their know-how and their readiness to engage in that way with their student.
Thank you, Marcia. Heather, I don't get paid unless I use the two words that everyone's talking about, artificial and intelligence. So kidding aside, how do we engage technology to communicate with parents and students? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. Please.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think AI is in almost every panel question now in some form, right? I think one, the answer is it kind of already exists in a lot of post-secondary institutions have gotten on board with chatbots and different pieces where they can kind of automate that process and engage in it. A lot of districts are using data mining and information from their college and career access, career advising platforms to kind of mine where students demonstrate interest. I'll say if districts aren't using ACT and SAT data too, where people are asking like, hey, what's your interest after, high school, like mining that information too, though that's not automated is a really important way to do so. But then I'll also say like a caution on that is that it's very easy in this age of technology where we have bridge programs that use AI to only assess learning for what students need to learn and don't test them on things they don't, right? It's easy to kind of forget that there's a human element here and that trust comes from relationships, right? One of my favorite quotes is like, the work moves at the speed of trust. And if you don't include those kind of like human touch points in that technological solve, technology is not going to be like a silver bullet. You've still got to put in that time to develop the relationships and help students unpack what they're seeing. I think I'll give a shout out to Denver Public Schools, who takes their college and career plans that students create and then translates them for all of their families into their languages and like sends that home with them so the families can engage in it too. But then they have those conversations, right? Because it can't just stop at the here's the thing and here's the tech solve, but there still has to be that human element involved.
Thank you. So we had a question come in, real-time question, so I'm just going to ask it out, and hopefully anyone can jump in here. Have there been any strategies put in place to support families in advance of the new FAFSA coming out in December, especially for those who stay in touch with their students through the post-secondary education? So this is open, but I'm hoping Jose and others can kind of jump in and share some strategies put in place to support families in advance of the new FAFSA. This is a free-for-all.
Yeah, I think FAFSA has been something we've done more and more within our classroom. Our schools have also, been jumping on that as well, have a FAFSA night, et cetera. But we know that on some of those nights, it's the ones you really want to get there don't always show up. So within this, we've instructed our teachers, our educators that teach Latinos in Action to actually make sure that every student within that classroom, including middle and high, actually go through this process. And that's done by a teacher for that hour, for that week, I would say, understanding the paperwork that comes with it, taxes, et cetera. It's heavy. I mean, anybody, all of us, if you have a child that's gone through it, it's a lot of work. So we want to be intentional and do it through the classroom within this course. So.
Thanks, Jose. John, over to you.
Yeah, I think FAFSA is probably one of those central points of engagement with all of our families for obvious reasons. And so what we're focused on now is as training rolls out, we're trying to educate our staff members on all the different changes in the new FAFSA. NCAN, which is a great organization, has put out some training, and we're having folks sign up and share and share out in staff meetings. To Jose's earlier point, we do have family nights and small group meetings with a cluster of parents, as well as really more one-on-one support for families because their situations are so unique. And that support really takes the entire senior year in terms of that, and some prep in the junior year as well. So that system will maintain. It's just sort of the how-to that's going to change.
Thanks, John. So with 1 minute left, and then I wish we could keep answering many of these questions, but I do want to end with just a huge appreciation. But if you could just kind of give me 3-4 words each, not too many, about what continues to keep you excited about this work. Some of the great positive things that you're seeing. So I will open it up to everyone to just say 3 or 4 words each about what's keeping you, a sentence, if you will.
Say collaboration and partnerships.
Thank you.
So the kids, every year seeing the kids that first day, they're the reason, right? Get up and do what we do every day. And that's the exciting part.
I think for me, at the end of the year, at some of our student events, hearing them elevate their pathway experiences, credits that they've accumulated, and how that has positioned them for their next level is just reaffirming that what we are all collectively doing is making a great impact.
I think for me, to watch our leaders build more leaders. So our young people are handling their community on their own. And when you can teach and they teach and they teach, that's what's power.
Yeah, I think it's really around addressing the equity issues that are pervasive in this country. And if we remain with the status quo, it's not going to change. And I think today with our panelists and the resources that were shared, there's a lot of opportunity for change and innovation to better support the students that we care so deeply about. And that's the only way we're going to see some changes in this country.
All right, I think I'm getting the hook here. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone, the wisdom, the knowledge you have shared. And I would like to welcome back my friend Sheetal Shah.
Thank you, Farhad. Thank you all for sharing your experiences and wisdom, both the challenges and the opportunities that you've utilized to ensure that there is family engagement. And also thank you to everyone who joined us today and in our previous 5 webinars for joining us in this series. A huge gratitude again to our amazing panelists. We know that you're busy, but you made time to share, and we need to continue to do that as a larger network. You've underscored for us that family engagement is not just a nice to have, but rather a must have. And as John just noted, there's a lot of opportunity here that lies amongst those of us who are on this webinar and those who we work with on a daily basis. There's a lot of opportunity for change and innovation. So let's take advantage of it. And finally, a huge gratitude to the Carnegie Corporation and to the Overdeck Family Foundation. We're super grateful, as I know others across the country are, for your leadership in supporting communities and school districts. And most importantly, thank you to everyone, all of the practitioners, all of the families and community-based organizations, school districts and educators who are every day continuing to ensure family engagement so that we continue to see it as an essential lever for student success, for academics, to well-being, and engaging them every single day, including our immigrant and multilingual families from early childhood and through high school and beyond. Our team from the Department of Education will follow up with resources from all of our webinars. I know many of you have been asking on today's chat as well, so please be sure to share far and wide. Don't let this end here. If you have any questions, we're here for you. Thank you so much.